Okay, so Doug, looking towards the future, what are the key trends that you see happening?
I think the trends are, where is the interview being placed on social networking sites? I see a trend for more short form interviews and clips, repurposing content. The 30-minute interview is still warranted because it's a great piece of content, but people are looking for more and more sound bites. Where do I access this sound bite? Where do I access this quote? Long form interviews have their place, but I see more positioning for short form clips, which you can take from long form video. Do I take this video and put it in a vertical format that I can watch on my cell phone? Do I have it where I'm seeing at my laptop or my desktop and I'm looking at a long form video? Do I watch the interview on my TV screen? So it's positioning content. It's, you say more and more content. I think it's more and more content to the point. I think the days of tell me about yourself, reading the whole freaking bio of the guest, if your audience does not know that, yeah, that's validated. But if they don't, if they do know, people want, at least that's my opinion, is that people want the information. They want it to be insightful and they want a sense of urgency and a directness.
So one of the keys then to getting people to watch your video is the thumbnail, right? So what tips do you have for making thumbnails that are compelling, that get people to click?
Well, let's think about it. That's a great question, because I've started doing more thumbnails, and there's programs out there that can create thumbnails, but you want some visual representation of what the interview is about. If I'm interviewing you, maybe both our pictures. But the key is, where are people watching the videos? Are they going to watch them on their cell phone? Well, more than half of people watch it on their cell phone. You see a lot of thumbnails. If you go to YouTube and channels, there's a lot of big font on those thumbnails. Whatever the topic is, in this case, creating content through interviews. That might be content, interviews, creation, real bold. When I look at a thumbnail, okay, I know what that topic is. So give me something visual. Now, I talked about YouTube. YouTube will auto-generate a thumbnail. Other programs, if you just upload it and here it is, it's going to create one. But having some form of big text that's bold, that tells the viewer when they glance at it on their phone or on their computer what's in the interview, I think that's a great thing. And obviously a great picture of something in action tends to help. At least that's the theory that I'm going with, because if you just have random pictures that don't tell you what it is, I'm sure people are going to read the title, but that thumbnail with that call to action definitely helps create more interest in watching the video.
You mentioned format, and so there's lots of different formats these days, depending on people, whether people are going to watch it on their desktop or their cell phone. What format do you use for your videos?
I use both in a sense. Let's just talk, since this is a B2B business platform in a sense. I know you do a lot, obviously, with LinkedIn groups and where this is being positioned. Wide format really works well on LinkedIn, but also the square format. Actually, square being a square format gives you more visual space if you're watching it on LinkedIn. So I always start with wide, but then I can turn it into a square or vertical, which vertical is that portrait mode that you see on your phone right here, the full mode right there. That's another thing. So I start with wide, but I always, if I position it on Instagram, Twitter, square format takes up a lot of real estate, gives you more mileage for your viewership, if that makes sense. So the answer to the question is, for me, I start wide, and then I go in and I may chop it up into square or even more of a portrait style. If you go and look at a LinkedIn feed, just generic, you'll see a lot of square ones where they've got the text up high and low from people that are video creators. You're getting more space out of that than you would if you just had it wide. Not much of a difference, but a noticeable difference that you're just getting more mileage, more of a scroll stopper.
Yeah.
Then you got to take into account if you're doing captions. That's a whole other topic, but where do you position those? Lower, below the interview. Then maybe have a title at the top part, and then having the side-by-side wide interview, like in this case we're doing. Header, the interview, the body of the interview, and then the captions below in a square format with the, and I'm just trying to give a visual here of where the actual body of the interview is.
Yeah, I like that, because it does give you more room for captions, because in a wide format, there's really not that much room down there at the bottom.
And I think you don't want to get caught up too much. And I know we've talked about, we touched on tools and everything. like, oh, square white. It's really just get the interviews, work on your questions, and be more insightful. It's your message that really matters, whether it's square, triangle. I don't really care what it is. If you don't have the message right or the audio quality on point, it doesn't really matter. But as you get more comfortable editing your skill sets, if you're doing your own editing or hiring somebody to do it, those will evolve.
When you're working with clients and Doug, you do these interviews. What else do you do for them? What services do you provide for your clients?
Well, the first thing, as you alluded to, obviously, is interviews. I interview clients for their own brand to get their story out for brand awareness. So interviews, whether they're face-to-face, like at events, like a live conference this year, I'll plug it. I'm doing the Outbound Sales Conference again, and I just got the gig, and I'll be doing interviews with speakers and trainers on site, and that's part of the conference. So the event planning committee hires me to do interviews. Interview that we're doing right now, like I'll interview guests, speakers, and authors, and that's just for viewership. That's one of the things, but I don't necessarily have to be on the camera. Since the pandemic, I do a lot what's called remote editing services. I can take other people that are doing interviews. They hire me to add all the stuff we talked about, to add the lower thirds, to add the graphics. So I do a remote production. 4 years ago, we didn't have as many online video interviews, okay? This allowed me to work as an editor remotely. I can work with somebody in London, somebody in Texas, somebody in Atlanta. It doesn't matter where they're located. Give me the footage and I can help package that. So I do a lot with editing as well as face-to-face interviews, or better yet, virtual interviews. So interviews and editing.
You know, that's my number one editing tip for clients. Don't.
Yeah, you're right. They shouldn't spend time worrying about editing or remote production. They should hire a guy like Doug, maybe. But all jokes aside, focus on your questions, focus on your interviews, focus on letting that person that you're interviewing shine in the interview. You know, there's a lot going on. When we create our own interviews, like you're doing your show, you're interviewing, you're focusing on the interview questions, you're listening, but you're also producing. You're wearing a lot of hats, and it's, you know, do what you do best and outsource the rest. People get a little hesitant about doing video, especially at this time. Practice on your cell phone, practice short form clips, and build up to those longer form interviews. You'll get better, you'll get stronger. So getting your reps in, there's a lot of great resources out there. I coined the phrase social watching. Watch how other people's are doing interviews. Watch, replicate and duplicate and learn. It's such a visual medium right now to watch video interviews or regular podcasts. Listen and build your own style, but the resources are out there. It's a question of just preparation, practice, do some social watching, hone in on your craft, and get your reps in.